Hi there, Karen Fabian here, founder of Bare Bones Yoga, and thanks for watching my YouTube channel. So today I wanted to do a quick video just focusing on the relationship between muscles, and this is something that's a little bit more of a fine-tuned level of understanding when it comes to anatomy, and it's really important that before you start to get into topics like these, you build a really good fundamental knowledge of the key aspects of anatomy. It can be really hard, and I know for yoga teachers out there, depending on where they're getting their anatomy information from, sometimes we end up trying to consume knowledge and content on anatomy before we've done the elementary steps that are really needed so that we can understand that other kind of information. And so what I'm going to share with you here really comes after you have a good understanding of how muscles work and the muscles in the body. And so that's a really tall order. For yoga teachers now, I'm not saying that you need to know all the muscles in the body. However, there are about 70 to 80 muscles you definitely should know. So having said that, what I'm going to do today is talk a little bit about how muscles interact with one another and how that can create a need for you as a yoga teacher to think about how you can impact your students so that they'll be able to move a little bit easier on the mat. Now, some of what I'm going to share with you really comes from exercise science and is not generally part of what we see in yoga classes. And by that I mean this concept of inhibiting muscles that are overactive. I'm a personal trainer as well as a yoga teacher, and so a lot of the information around inhibiting muscles really lives more in the personal training, exercise science world. And the reason for that is because if you've ever had an experience of going to a trainer at a gym, most likely you started with some foam rolling or some massage ball rolling or both. And the idea behind that is it's really hard to work with someone in terms of physical exercise if their muscles have increased tone. And when you think about it, the really amazing thing is that that applies to yoga as well. Imagine yourself when you first come onto the mat and you feel a little bit stiff and out of sorts. Well, imagine instead that you did a little MFR, myofascial release, beforehand. What that would essentially do is decrease the tone in some of your muscles, and by tone I mean overactivity. In some of your muscles that are, and let's just use regular people jargon, consumer jargon, overly tight. And it's going to use these tools to decrease some of that tightness. And then it will allow you to move with a little more movability. So when we look at the joints and we think about what do we need in joints, we need good range of motion. And what's around the joints? Muscles. And so if the muscles are overly tight or contracted, they will absolutely affect the ability of the joint to move well, and that will affect your experience, and you'll probably feel like you have tight muscles. So let's take a look at the relationship between muscles in the anterior, the front of the body, muscles like internal rotators of the shoulder, pec minor, pec major, subscapularis, and let's look at them. In addition, look at some muscles in the posterior chain, the back of the body, specifically the middle and lower trapezius and the rhomboids that draw, and all those muscles together are involved in adduction of the scapula, drawing the scapula closer together. So if you were working with someone, let's say in the context of yoga, and you noticed that they had kind of a forward head tilt, you also noticed that they had rounding of the shoulders, that would be a really good sign, or not a good sign, but that would be an indicator that they've got excessive tightness here and excessive weakness here. And this is a really common dynamic. And you might also notice when they do overhead reaches in certain poses, let's say like a warrior one, you might notice the same thing. This kind of rounding of the shoulders, the forward head tilt, rounding of the upper back even a little bit, and a challenge in getting the shoulders into full flexion. Shoulder flexion being this. And so what you could do, if you were working with someone one-on-one for sure, this would be harder in a group class, although here we are in the middle of the pandemic. I'm sure many of you are doing things online. If your students online in their homes have access to these tools, you could absolutely use these in an online class as well. So what you could do here is have them look for some wall space, and we're going to take the ball and we're going to place the ball right on the pec area. and they're going to place the ball on the pec, and they're going to arrange their body close to the wall, make a cactus arm, and just begin to create some movement. Now I know obviously you can't see this, but I'm sure you can get a sense of what I'm doing here. I'm just kind of using the wall as leverage and using it to massage around that area of concern. Now additionally, I can move my arm a little bit. And I would say, obviously I've got a picture here. You're going to try to find a wall where you have nothing on it. And then you're going to do the same thing on the other side, where you have nothing on it, and therefore you're going to have a lot more room to move. Keep in mind, one technique involves rolling. One technique involves moving the limb as you hold steady. And one technique involves just compression. So I'm moving at a bit of a fast pace, much faster than I would want you to do it, just for purposes of the recording here. But keep in mind, those three techniques are what we're looking for. We're looking for compression, we're looking for rolling, and then we're looking for this idea of pinning and moving. So once you do that, the next thing that you can do, especially if you have a foam roller available, is provide a bit of stimulation to those muscles in the back of the body. So you're going to bring yourself down onto the ground, interlace the hands behind the back, and begin to create some rolling. So now you'll notice here we're right on that area in between the shoulder blades, that area of concern, rhomboids, middle, and lower traps. And you would do this a few times. Again, I'm abbreviating here for video purposes. And shift to something where you're just kind of slightly moving into a bit of extension, spinal extension. All right, so you're going to do that a couple more times. And now is when you would move into your yoga practice. Now, we're not going to do a whole yoga practice here. The idea, though, is that you would do a 10 to 15 minute segment of myofascial release and then move students through a yoga practice. It would be really helpful to get some pre-practice perceptions of how they feel in their body and then compare it to how they feel at the end. Now, in terms of particular postures, you're going to look for postures that involve shoulder opening and postures that involve scapular adduction. So there's quite a few of those. All our up dogs, obviously upward dog has external rotation of the shoulders. Your dancer's pose has external rotation. Your camel pose. Any of your back bends on the floor, on the belly, on the back, like Urdhva Dhanurasana wheel, all shoulder openers. That will provide some length to those overly contracted muscles in the anterior chain. And then in terms of strength for that posterior area, you could do this kind of typical, somewhat typical interlacing the fingers behind the back. You could do poses with cactus arm variations where you're cueing people to draw the shoulder blades together. Even things like upward dog gives us an opportunity to cue scapular adduction as well. So you can see how you can weave this anatomical theme of focusing on how these muscles work, not really with one another, but kind of against one another, considering postural challenges that may be happening in the body, and you can create a whole theme around that. I won't go into a lot of detail, but another common one to use this same approach with is focusing on hip flexors and hip extenders. So primarily muscles like the psoas and the rectus femoris, and the counterparts, agonist, antagonist, gluteus maximus, and hamstrings. Those are the muscles that would be responsible for hip extension. Rectus femoris and psoas would be hip flexion. And you see very similar scenarios with these and these. A lot of tightness here, some weakness here. So you could build a similar theme, start with the MFR, move to looking for poses that provide challenge for the back and length for the front. So I hope you found this helpful. I know this is a lot of information that may be hitting you and you may be feeling like, I just really don't have a good understanding of the key aspects of anatomy. So if you're out there and you're really trying to kind of figure this all out on your own, I can absolutely tell you that's possible. It's just much more stressful than it needs to be. One of the things that I've done is created a very step-by-step organized program that allows teachers to learn anatomy. And it's called the Blueprint Learning Program. And all you need to do to get on the wait list for it is visit my website, barebonesyoga.com, and click the waitlist link. I'll also include it here at the end of this video. I just closed enrollment yesterday on Sunday, October 4th, 2020, so enrollment is closed for now. However, if you get on the wait list, I do intermittently open enrollment for students on the wait list, teachers who have kind of raised their virtual hand and said, yeah, I'm interested in learning more about this. And then additionally, when I open enrollment in general for everybody, you'll also find out because you're on the wait list as well. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I'd love to know what you think, so leave a comment. Don't forget to click the like button so you're alerted when I post the next video. Have a wonderful day. Namaste.